Provide more insights in the chaos. We have with us Richard Heydarian.
Chaos.
Yeah, where there is chaos, there is Richard. Hashtag.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Okay, Richard, last year, there were several key promises by President Bongbong Marcos. Did you see any of them come to fruition?
Well, ganito na lang. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of discussion of the perspiration part. Ano yung mga grocer list na mga gagawin niya, mga projects niya. But what he needs is also inspiration, right?
Yeah.
What are going to be the fireworks and big announcements to rally the nation, to build up his support, and to win over many Filipinos who are still not fully convinced with this administration? Now, given na yung Duterte base, wala na yan, sunog na yan. Let's just be very clear about it. Kalaban na yan, basically, and they're already preparing for 2028. If not earlier, getting rid of Marcos, and they're saying Marcos is a lame dog. If Marcos doesn't go big, he risks looking like a lame dog.
Wait, Richard, pasok natin si Angel. She'll join us.
Sure, please.
Angel, come in.
Hi, we're still here at the Batasan Pabasa Complex, wherein all eyes are here for the fourth State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. So, anong pinag-uusapan niyo dyan? Kasi dito, nagpuntahan na, nakakita na tayo ng ilang mga lawmakers dito sa North Wing of Batasan Pambansa Complex. Nakita natin si Congressman Chel Jokno, former Congressman Erin Tanyada was also here, and other members of the House. Kanina dumaan na kasi right now ongoing, natapos na yung roll call dun sa House of Representative at nananatili nga uncontested yung leadership ni House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Kanina, nakita din natin sa over to the Senate, nakita rin natin yung naging botohan doon at si Senator Chis Escudero pa rin yung tinalagang Senate President doon. Over 19 votes, 5 votes lamang ang nakuha ni Senator Tito Soto. So far, yun muna yung nangyayari dito sa House of Representatives, wherein itong North Wing na to ay wala ang red carpet, although nandito pa rin ang iba't ibang mga ahensya ng media para mag-interview at mag-cover nga nitong fourth State of the Nation address. So far, yun pala nga nangyayari dito.
Tingnan nga natin. Walang physical red carpet, pero in treatment, tingnan natin kung meron. Richard, hold a thought about what I asked you. What I want to ask you is about what happened sa Congress and Senate today. Yeah. What does this tell you? What's going to happen in these next 2 years by seeing Speaker Romualdez on his way to getting back the speakership and Senator Chis Escudero solidifying his role as Senate President?
So, the big picture is we have had a historical reversal kung saan mas stable yung leadership, it seems, doon sa lower house or the Congress kumpara doon sa upper house or the Senate. In the Senate, the situation has been quite fluid, to put it mildly. Nevertheless, in the meantime, I think because of the Supreme Court ruling, it kind of perhaps vindicated or at least put some wind in the wings of Chis Escudero, who has been raising skepticism about the impeachment process.
Yes.
So perhaps that explains why he was able to head off itong Tito Soto challenge. But that's for now.
He only got 5.
Exactly. So it's going to be a very, but for me, the only solid in the Senate is the 7 Duterte supporters solid. The rest, I think, it's going to be a fluid going on. Speaking of fluid, I mean, you have Bam and Kiko and Risa in one frame, but on different side of the bench.
You mentioned you have the 7 solid, so you're saying out of the 19, that 7 solid, you will see a lot that will happen as their own agendas come out.
We're talking about 24 republics, right? So it just happened because of historical reasons and the strength of the Duterte ideology. Meron ka mga 5, 6, 7 na solid na Duterte based talaga na senators there. But the rest, they're single republics. I mean, so single that we don't have Bam and Kiko and Risa together.
It's really interesting because I remember historically, you were saying it also na ang pag-alam ko, pag sinabi mong Congress, talaga ang shifting ng leadership, grabe.
I mean, let's remember, yung SONA, was it 2018? Hindi natin alam. Sino ba? Is it Pantaleon Alvarez pa rin? Is it Arroyo? Like,
nawala yung roster.
It was a mess. I would say since the Venecia, this is the most stable, perhaps, leadership we have, considering the fact that Romualdez took a big hit from the Duterte side, right? In terms of, syempre, yung articles of impeachment, the whole tambalos-los back and forth. For him to have close to what, 300?
300.
And barely anyone losing dun sa team who were behind the Quadcom hearings and all. Only one lost at hindi yata, I think, governor ang pinap. So, for me, considering everything, this is a very impressive
That's right.
consolidation and preservation of power by Romualdez. I don't know if he has higher ambitions for national office, but so far, pagdating sa Speaker of the House, he seems to be a
Solid.
master choreographer.
Solid. Tsaka uncontested yung yung leadership niya dito, talagang wala na. Walang lumaban
walang
sa kanya.
ibang na-nominate, di ba,
Richard,
Angel? Walang ibang na-nominate, no? Siya lang.
I mean, Arroyo tried
But you wanna
to
ask
make some
Richard.
feelers, but in the
Wala.
end, she had to give up. Yep.
Yeah, oo. Yeah, I want to ask Richard also, no, well, it came us with no surprise doon sa nangyari doon sa Senate, dahil yun na yung pinag-uusapan pa rin na talagang si Senator Chis Escudero, yung mananatiling Senate President doon. At yun nga, finally, nakita na rin natin yung dalawa, si Senator Kiko Pangilinan at saka Senator Bam Aquino will really join a majority. No? Tingin natin, makikita natin dito yung talagang mahahawakan nila yung kanilang mga gustong committee.
Well, I mean, please, thank you for putting me in trouble again. I know I ruffled a lot of feathers in another side of the equation when I said, sana naman, tatlo na nga lang sila, nagsama pa sila, di ba? But it looks like the priority, it looks for Bam and Kiko is to get as much things as done as possible so that just in case if one of them or both of them have higher office in mind in 2028, want to run for VP, want to run for presidency, maipakita sila. I think the success of Bongo, Senator Bongo with the whole Malasakit project, I mean, hindi niya pera yan, but his project niya just shows you na baka ito yung pinaka-political appealing. I think we had no less than former Vice President Leni Robredo, who's considered, some see as a potential presidential, but also saying that we really have to be pragmatic. And I think when she says pragmatic, it doesn't mean na trapo. It means that dapat may deliverables ka pag tumakbo ka come 2028.
You used a good word, trapo. I'd like to ask you, Senator Bam, Senator Kiko, do you see them now towing the line of yung mga policies or sa letak ng Pangulo with regards to just bowing down and following what we all know naman what happens there? Do you see them towing the line or will they have their own independence despite of being in the majority?
Well, we don't know what's the quid pro quo. I mean, is it because friends lang sila ni Cheese, like, come join me and we're gonna be fine? It looks like Cheese didn't need them to form the majority.
Yeah, no
it's
matter what,
decisive,
yeah.
right? So is there gonna be something in exchange for them? I mean, I don't think there's free lunch in politics, right? So if you're gonna get chairmanship with big budget and all of that, I think the minimum expectation is if yung DDS7 do some would find questionable hearings or activities, you're expected to keep mum because it's kind of weird to attack your fellow majority members.
That's right.
So I think at the very least union compromise. But there could be more. There could be some legislative agenda and other things that Cheese might push for. And if you're part of majority, you have to toe the line. I find it fanciful for people to say you can be minority within majority. The hegemonic bloc within the majority is going to be the DDS7. They're going to determine how Cheese is going to move forward. So that means you have to go with the flow. And that's why some of us were saying, para medyo weird na Risa will be on the other side and you guys will be on this side. Nevertheless, this is Philippine politics. This is in our Game of Thrones situation. Maybe they might try to make this work. The other question is also, of course, I mean, Riza Ontiveros has been in minority since ever. She chose to be still in minority even from the transition from Mig Zubiri to Chis Escudero. But can anyone question her effectiveness? I don't think so.
No.
So I think the argument of Kiko and Bam, to be fair to them, would be, well, iba kasing priorities niya eh. Kami kasi, pagkain, edukasyon, dito kailangan mo talaga ng direct access, di ba? And you only could get that if it's Jesus Escudero. But let me just end on this point. For me to say, as long as they're just pro the trial, and that's good enough, I think that's not good enough. I think you have to look at the holistic performance they're gonna have in the majority. Because, okay, so what? You're for the trial. Anyway, alam mo naman mukhang hindi mangyayari.
That's the question of the day.
Madali lang naman. I think hindi naman mangyayari. Most likely yung trial in maybe next year, who knows? Maybe the motion for reconsideration work. But I think that's a low bench. That's a low benchmark to say, basta pro-trial sila, okay na. No! What are they gonna say if, let's say, Mark Oleta in the Blue Ribbon Committee pushes for a certain hearing na Riza doesn't agree with, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Let's say Bato pushes for certain law that completely goes against principles of liberal
That's why I was asking that.
Then you expect Bam and Kiko go guns blazing, and you're still part of majority. I mean, I'm just saying, let's just dispense with Mickey Mouse theories, right? This is politics.
Richard,
Politics can be brutal.
Original, I want to ask also kasi 'di ba nakita nga natin yung kasi ruling in favor sa partido ng mga Duterte, and we're also thinking na dapat ba na sundin ito ng Senate, or ituloy nila yung kanilang impeachment trial like what Senator Joel Villanueva has just said, na maaari nilang ituloy itong trial
even
ng
Senator Tito
impeachment
Soto.
contrary doon sa naging
Yeah.
desisyon ng SC.
A lot of them toyed with that idea.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, every branch wants to assert their prerogative. So prerogative ng House of Representatives is yung articles of impeachment transmitting it, right? Prerogative ng Senate is a trial. Prerogative of the Supreme Court is final arbiter in terms of interpretation of the Constitution. Now, if the Senate pushes ahead, they have to justify it. One way is to say, if there's a motion for reconsideration, they say, hindi pa naman final, so we will exercise our prerogative. But I more agree with people like Justice Carpio saying, why not file the motion for reconsideration? If that was struck down, then I don't think it's a good idea for Senate to force the point, because then you'll go into a constitutional crisis. Having said that, I want to also hear from President Marcos Jr. because you had clear
If he talks about it.
if I rather
should he?
he should say something about it. I mean, he cannot be like an ostrich pretending there's nothing happening. I think, was it Claire Castro? You said Claire Castro said something like, we respect but we disagree. So what does that mean? Where does the president stand? Remember, these are all co-equal branches. So where does the president stand as the representative of the executive, right? Because some are saying this is a judicial overreach.
Yeah.
Some are saying, no, you have to respect the Supreme Court. The Malacanang saying we respect it but we disagree.
But you know,
so ano ba talaga, di ba?
Yung Richard, Malacanang disagreed, but the president in nature as a individual character has agreed na wala dapat impeachment. So it's very confusing sa tao. Ano ba messaging nyo? Because the office we might disagree, but the president himself as a person agrees na wala dapat impeachment.
Well, you were talking about the president who always says he doesn't want to pick a fight, a president who says, I don't want to I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, and yet where is Kiboloy now? Where is Digong now? Right? So there are also some people saying that you shouldn't take. You should take BBM's words with a grain of salt. That he will project a kind of a collegial, conciliatory position, but it's the actions of the executive branch that really matter. So we also don't know what are the machinations behind the scenes. Let's not forget, it's not like the Senate
Richard,
President and the Malacanang don't have any dynamic at all.
ng presidente, pero sa likod iba ang ginagawa.
And remember, the Speaker of the House is a cousin of the President too. Sandro Marcos was one of the first person to sign the impeachment. I think we should not pretend that there's some interlocking networks of influence.
So you would agree that Marcos Jr.'s playbook is that of his father, because his father was also the great negotiator. But the function of the executive during his time was different.
Well, depends which. Are you talking about pre-martial law or post-martial law, Marcos? Obviously, you cannot compare the martial law, Marcos, because there was no democracy to begin with. No, I think for President Marcos, his first challenge is yung immediate thing. Explain to us why the flood control projects are not working.
Question of the day.
Explain to us why the 1 percentage point daw, kasi 5% naman yung 1%, yung 20%, whatever. Why yun lang? Pwede mo naman i-zoom lang kay Trump yan, di ba? You could have just sent him a big, beautiful letter and say, you're the greatest president and he'll give you 1%. Kung yun lang naman makuha natin. I think he has to explain those things and then lay down a bigger narrative na legacy years ko na to, eto mga kailangan ko gawin, tulungan niyo ako because my success is the success of the nation.
Yeah.
Yung mga hater ko, wala akong magagawa dyan. Pero sana naman the majority of Filipinos will be with me because for me, this is really a make or break situation for the president because the line is already, he's becoming a lame duck. His approval rating...
Tail end na. Tail end is the last 3 years.
Exactly.
Richard.
Yep.
I want to ask nga kasi nga we're in the middle of his term now. Ang tanong dito, may naipakita na ba along the way na legasiya si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos o wala pa rin?
His narrative could, actually, plausibly could be this. Ang dami kong gustong gawin, kaso inaaway ako eh. Tingnan mo naman, sinasabi na papatayin ako, papatayin niya asawa ko, di ba? Ginugulo yung bansa eh. You had Claire Castro, at least on my platform, saying, medyo nagdi-destabilize na yung kabila.
Let me add to that. Legacy, could his legacy be he's the one who put PRRD in The Hague and he put Pastor Apollo Quiboloy in jail?
Yun nga, except, if your name is Ferdinand Marcos, I don't know, fighting for human rights and rule of law is...
Conflicting.
Medyo, I won't say it's on brand. But, it could also be, if later on he says, we'll rejoin the ICC because I believe in rule of law, right? Then maybe he's gonna go for a
If he
big
does that,
rebrand.
could he redeem his brand?
Hindi lang redeem, totally rebranding na yan.
Just by the move
totally
of
rebranding,
accepting the ICC back.
Yeah, remember, he already did the first rebranding when he fought for West Philippine Sea and all of that. Everyone was expecting him to be soft on China, Duterte-esque on West. He didn't. And kaya nga love siya ng mga Western capitals. I've been to Europe 3 times in the past 3 months. All the capitals love him. But that's just on the West Philippine Sea issue. What about on human rights issues? What about rule of law issues? So if he signals something big and positive on that front, who knows? Even some of the pinks and progressive might say, yeah, maybe BBM is not our number one choice, but we want him to succeed in the next 2-3 years because at least this is the best we can get from the current circumstances.
If he gets the ICC back, do you think the ICC will now in the future, there's also that, you can entertain that idea naman that they might go after the past human rights abuses.
Sure.
Will they drop it now if he becomes friendly towards them?
Well, last time I checked, the jurisdiction is from the time we signed the Rome Statute and onward. So this is pre-2011.
So we're he's safe.
No,
he's safe.
Well, if you're talking about the Marcos senior legacy and all of that, they're basically safe. I don't think
Okay,
it applies
Richard,
that
let's
way.
talk about the upcoming 4th State of the Nation address of PBBM. Nagaganapin nga later ng 4 p.m. Last year, ang naging highlight ng kanyang speech ay yung pagban niya ng Pogo.
Yeah.
No? This year, ano kaya yung pinaka-highlight niya? Would it be about online gaming?
It has to. It has to.
You think he'll end with that? Pièce de resistance niya?
I think he'll try to split the difference. Maybe my suggestion would have been call for suspension. Pag-aralan natin.
So not ban or regulate?
Kasi I'm sure there are people,
Divided
malaki
yung
kasing
lawmakers
revenues for government eh.
Yeah.
Diba? And we have a fiscal crunch.
That's right.
Kaya nga may 20% pa dinagdag dun sa interest ng long term ganun na si Ronald Llamas kung anong nilabas nito. But anyway, my point is, he can split the difference to play it safe, no? But still do to say, okay, suspend muna tayo lahat yan, pag-aralan natin, mukhang mataas yung social cost. Or he could go all the way and just say total ban because we have seen enough. Kasi grabe yung mga kwento na
But he
narinig
has
natin
to end this SONA as resounding as he ended the last SONA. Mas lalo na ngayon, Richard, kasi very critical this SONA. It's because this is the midterm SONA na tinatawag nila. This is the tail end. This is the legacy building.
Yeah.
What will be this pièce de resistance? He needs that same amount of gusto from the other lawmakers.
Yeah, absolutely. He has to rally the troops.
So
right?
it's a rally cry. It's not something like, I will do this, I will do that.
Yeah, he's gonna do the grocery list, but I don't think that will inspire people.
Wala nang...
Magaling naman siya mag-ganun eh. Yung, he's a good speaker. I mean, in terms of, not spontaneous, but in terms of big speeches. But I think there are parts na dapat mag-Tagalog na lang siya. Kausapin niya yung taong bayan, medyo mas personal. Yun kasi mahirap eh. President Rodrigo Duterte may not be my favorite in terms of rhetorical style.
But he connected.
But he was really good in connecting, right?
He connected.
Yung spontaneity niya, yung talking straight to the people. Pinoy was the first president who spoke diretsong Filipino.
Yeah.
So when you come after those two presidents, who by the way had very high approval rating at this stage, both were 60-70% or even more.
I think he's lower now. BBM.
BBM is way lower than those two. Maybe you want to get some tricks from their playbook, diba? Which is mag-switch ka sa Tagalog, kausapin mo yung taong bayan, ilabas mo na hindi lang ito scripted na binabasa ko ng shopping list. Mahal ko kayo, naiwala ako sa ating demokrasya. Please give me more chance. Nahirapan, maraming nangyaring drama. But if we can focus just on the work that we have ahead of us in the next 3 years, we will leave the country in a better place in 2 to 3 years from now. Dapat ganun yung narrative building eh. So that's what I'm saying. It cannot just be perspiration. There has to be inspiration.
That's what I wanted to ask you. You said there has to be inspiration, but do you think he can get that inspiration? Richard, let's face it, maingay itong presidency na to. There's a lot of political noise. I don't think it will end. It's going to continue from the Dutertes, from the other side.
Yeah.
Can he build this legacy despite of all the noise?
Well, he has to build the legacy through the noise, right? He has to bulldozer his way. The Dutertes are not gonna go away.
Yeah.
Even if Sara were to be impeached, even if hindi naman tapos ang mga Dutertes,
Mas
you
iingay
still
pa
have
yan.
Bongo there, you still have Bato there. Dutertismo is a movement. 20 to 40% of the population are amenable to the whole idea of a Duterte-style
Do you
president.
liken it to the MAGA of the US?
Yeah,
Sila
yeah,
MAGA
exactly.
natin?
By the way, I'm not drawing moral equation.
No.
Baka ma-persona ng grata naman ako.
Movement.
But I'm saying it is a solid movement,
Yeah.
right? So anong pangtapat mo doon? Because the Pinks also have their own, around 10 to 20%.
You have the pink wave.
So, hindi naman pwedeng loyalista in the 1970 sense. So the president, I think his instinct is a technocratic kind of effect. But kailangan, mga Pinoy tayo, we need something more inspirational, hindi lang technocratic eh. something more relatable. And I think that's going to be the challenge for President Marcos Jr. He should project humility, but he should also project decisiveness. Yun yung kulang sa...
Keyword.
So you kept on comparing him to his father, right? His father did not lack in projecting decisiveness.
He was very...
Sometimes a bit too much, I would say, to put it mildly. He's not... I mean, I'm Ilocano, right? So a lot of Ilocanos say he's more Romualdez daw. Yung malumanay, very gentleman, very statesman.
Yeah.
Kasi Marcos is very tough sila. Yeah. Very tough sila, diba? So my sense is, we have to see both the Romualdez and Marcos in him. He has to show that dexterity to get the best out of his speech. So this could be, arguably, his most important speech and the game changer.
Ano ba in-expect nyo? Yeah, Angel, go ahead.
I wanna also ask kasi kung anong nakikita niyang playbook naman ni Senator Amy Marcos. Earlier, I mean, for a couple of months ago, narinig natin yung pangalan niya sumulpot sa pagiging Senate President.
Senate President.
Naman, hindi naman yun natuloy. But right now, making sure na talagang solid yung foundation ng unity, yung foundation ng friendship, relationship nila ng Duterte. Anong playbook naman ngayon na makikita natin this time around with Senator Amy Marcos?
Well, as I always say, Amy is for Amy. But having said that, it's a complicated picture for her. So if you look at the 2025 elections, actually Solid North still was the basis of her
that was
success.
Solid North.
That was Solid North. In fact, you were in Ilocos, you would see pictures of her and her brother together. So it's not true. So sa Ilocos region and the north of the country, they were still seen as one
So
family.
even if galit ang mga North sa Duterte block, Amy parang din
Amy
nila.
still got the
So
north.
Amy has both. North and South?
Still the North carried her. So the South was more, I would say, in potential phase, right? Speaking of Amy Marcos, obviously, let's not forget, she just got into the Senate by the skin of her teeth.
Yes.
Not a very resounding victory. 12th siya pumasok. Yes. So I don't know how much momentum she has. I think one thing interesting to watch in the coming year or two is what will happen within the Duterte camp. Because assuming Sara Duterte is the standard bearer, who will be the VP? Robin Hood Padilla? Bongo? Bongo wants to be the president. If
face off sila.
Exactly. Is it gonna be is it gonna be Amy? So, because Robin Hood could always make the case that I'm the loyal guy. I number one the Senate race. You're just like number 12, and you're Marcos, by the way. Like ilang beses ba kami mag-trust ng Marcos, di ba? Like, you get what I'm saying? So Amy actually has a very tough job because she needs the solid north because that's what really keeps her in power. At the same time, how far can she go to win over on the other side when there are already people there like Robin Hood Padilla and Bongo and Bato and all who are already seen as loyal soldiers or at least proven soldiers of the Duterte movement, right? And sons of Davao, sons of Mindanao. So Amy has a very tough situation, actually. I don't know how she's going to navigate it. But the fact that we talk about her means she's relevant. Maybe that's a win in itself.
Pero that's why interesting topic, Richard. Usually pagka-election, it's always the incumbent versus the so-called opposition. It's very confusing sa akin ngayon. Ano ba ang positioning ngayon? Because sa Duterte block, you have them infighting. So malamang their votes will be divided.
Right.
Who will benefit from this? Will it be Leni Robredo's movement? Will it be PBBM's movement?
So you have many scenarios, but for me, assuming Sara goes all the way to 2028, it could really go down between Sara versus a combined forces of administration, progressives, and pinks, maybe under Leni. That's the... And some surveys suggest Leni could actually win in that face-to-face
mataas siya.
scenario. Some survey would say, but we can have a long conversation about the surveys. But you can also have another situation whereby the pinks and progressive get split. Some are anti-Duterte more than anti-Marcos. Never Marcos versus... And if that gets split, then maybe Sara can get just enough from one side, and then President BBM might not end up having any really viable candidate. Then I think the Dutertes will be back in 2028. So in short, ang pinks and progressive, they don't have the numbers to be a hegemonic bloc, but they have enough numbers to be at the very least kingmakers. And if they play their cards well in the next 2-3 years, they could even end up as the king or the queen.
But Richard, are we seeing ba na may alliances between the pink progressive and the Marcos bloc ngayon?
I think that's far from settled. I think that's far from settled. I think this whole Risa, Bam, Kiko situation na hindi man lang sila in one block right now and there are different signaling about what should be done, that tells you that I'm not ruling out some tensions down the road here, right? Because remember, Riza Ontiveros is a very different kind of opposition from, let's say, BAM or Lenny, right? There are already conversations about the Lenny-Bam tandem. Right? So basically, box out Risa altogether. But there are many people who believe in Risa that she is the future. So it's like in the Democrats, right? Do you want an AOC Bernie Sanders as a future Democrat Party? Or do you want a more Kamala Harris type, right? Medyo similar din yan. Kaya sabi ko, the one risk for the genuine opposition is that baka they get splintered and split. So as early as now, it's good for them to show unity, even if they're on different sides of the bench, right? But this is the Philippines. I think we are good in splitting the difference and making things work, right? So I won't rule out still the Pinks being a major force to reckon with come 2020. And if Marcos doesn't have a strong candidate for 2028, he will have no choice but to support whoever is against Duterte's, because kung bumalik ang mga Duterte, alam natin, it's going to be really hindi naman bloodbath, but something not very ideal for him. Having said that, last point, singit ko lang yan. I know this is gonna sound like crazy. Eto na naman si Richard. He's doing his UFC, hyping up. But watch out for General Torre, right? We have been talking about the Tulfos as one big dark horse for the 2028. But I think General Torre has consistently shown that he has a potential to be also a dark horse. And considering how loyal and effective he has been for President BBM, I won't be surprised in 2 years from now when he's gonna retire as a PNP chief, BBM would say, maybe he's my guy. And Torre could be the next Mindanaoan president. And that would be a very interesting situation. Again, I'm just saying, we're looking at scenarios here. Magagalit na mamata. Ito naman si Richard, nag-hype siya ng tao. But I'm just saying, the situation is far more fluid than people saying, Sara na naman yan, tapos na yan. Pag hindi mo ma-impeach si Sara, panalo na siya. I think that's a very simplistic, deterministic way of reading Philippine politics, which is far more exciting and fluid.
And you never know kasi what could happen in the future. Ang daming pwedeng mag-emerge in the next 3 years, right?
Yeah, interesting point, Richard, kasi may movement nga talaga ngayon si General Torre. But thank you for your time and insights, because I heard you're on your way to Batasan.
Yeah, I'll join the rest of the team there shortly.
Yeah,
thank you for your time, for your insights, geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian, for joining us here on the program.
Salamat. Thank you very much.